Alright, what is up everyone? We are back with another video. So as you see in Catch the Creek, converter wasn't really happy and also the car wasn't really that happy. So not really a super successful outing, but we left on a lot of power, nothing happened. If you watched the video, you've seen how it went. So that means it's torque converter time once again. So there we go. Got the old reed case glide out. Still leaks, which is kind of annoying, and I can't figure out where. Changed so many fittings and all kinds of stuff, and it just always got a little tiny drip, and it just drives me insane. But I don't know, I'm not sure what to think. But so the Circle D is gonna go on the shelf for a while. I don't know what's going on, and we've just been battling it for so long. We got to try something different. And I had the PTC laying around, which is right here, so I sent it back to them. And they restated it for this particular combo because the other one was extremely tight once I put the 390 gear in it. So this one should be a lot better off, at least for this particular combo. So hopefully it is pretty good. I'm not really sure what to expect out of it. Some people say it's probably going to be too loose. Other people I talked to with similar combinations say it might be a little tight just because my car's on a little bit on the heavier side, but we will find out. So definitely excited to try something different. You know, been battling whatever's been going on for so long. Got a couple other things to try, but hopefully we can get out and test on Sunday and see what the thing will do. Couple other things. I also have a 14-volt battery that'll be here tomorrow. So then we'll put that in. And then I don't know if any of you guys watch Family Man Racing on YouTube, but he showed how to use one of these little guys, a potentiometer, I believe it is called. You can wire this in and trick a factory alternator into charging at whatever you want it to, basically. Well, maybe not whatever you want it to, but within range, depending on how many ohm or whatever it is you put in. I don't really know how that stuff works, but I watched this video and I'm just gonna do exactly what he did, and I will show how it works and everything. So shout out to him for making that video. It's a killer video. I sure hope it works on this one. I think I have a little bit different alternator than him, but it really should work with all of them. So we'll find out. And you'll see it probably towards the end of this video once I get it. But yeah, so I mean, not really a whole lot to do with the transmission, but I am gonna put the dump valve back on just because we proved that it wasn't a low charge pressure thing. I mean, this thing pretty much ran 60 to 70 PSI every pass consistently. And I think it needs a little more than 70 off the hit to kind of bite, at least with that particular converter. We'll find out with this one. But yeah, and I might do a little rerouting just to, I already rerouted this once, but I think I'm gonna reroute it again because I think I have a better idea on how to do it. But I'm at least gonna get the dump valve on and see just what I can all do with it. But yeah, so pretty straightforward with this one. Basically just get the dump on and put her back in. So not a whole lot to do there. And then put the battery in and we should be good. Then we should solve our voltage problem, which will be awesome. And you know, the reason for the voltage problem is the 3 525s draw a hell of a lot more than that brushless air motive. So the problem just gets a lot worse when you're drawing a lot harder. It was still holding like 12.5, so I mean, it was working, but you gotta be up around 13.5. So even now with the 14-volt battery, if it tosses the belt, we should still run 13.5 volts going down the track. Otherwise, it should be running 16 if it's holding the belt on. And it shouldn't have to work so hard. So I think everything will be all good, and that'll solve just, yeah. Then if the belt flies off, it's not the end of the world, because when the belt flew off before, you were basically done for the day because then the car didn't have enough juice to do anything after that. So a few things we'll try, do that. I'll make some video as I'm putting this thing back together. Also got a new fuel filter. I think I talked about it before, but I don't remember if you can clean those air motive filters or not. Someone in the comments, if you read that, I read an article years ago that I swear they said the micro glass filters, you couldn't clean them. But I was hunting the internet for that article and I couldn't find it. And so I attempted to clean mine, but I don't know if it did anything or not. So there's the new one. And it didn't look dirty. Every time I ran like the MagnaFuel ones where they say that you can, or MagnaFlow or MagnaFuel, whatever it is, when they say that you can clean them once, I would take them out and you could tell that there was stuff in there. This one, it literally looks exactly how that one looked in the box, and I find that hard to believe since it's been in the car for like 2 years. So put a new fuel filter on it. That should hopefully, if that was a problem, that will be not a problem anymore. With the extra voltage, we shouldn't have any issues with the pumps. And really the pumps would never have an issue if I could keep an alternator belt on this thing, or if it just, I mean, this is the littlest LS alternator you can get because of the header setup on this car. It's the only one that fits. So that's where the source of most of my problems are, I believe. But now we shouldn't have to deal with that anymore. So that'll be super awesome. But I'm gonna get to switching some transmission lines and put this thing back in. So let's do it. All right, so it's been an hour or two probably. And I did some rerouting on the old transmission lines, so this will hang up like here once it's all done. But I kind of like that a lot more. It's easier. Nothing's gonna interfere with the tunnel of the car, because the way I had it before, this one, it kind of looped around here, and that always caused some interference with the tunnel. It's kind of it's a little bit of a tight fit, even though it's a Power Glide, so that kind of sucks. If you ever went 400, it might be tighter, but I like the way this is done. I should be able to tighten, if anything's leaking or whatever, I should be able to tighten these in the car a lot easier than I was before. So looks pretty good. I checked everything real nice here. I shouldn't have to mess with any of this now. It should be pretty dialed in to go into the car. So everything seems to be tight. It's all holding good. I thought maybe this was leaking. There's a line pressure sensor, so I'd re-T-tape that. It's really lame that this thing has this knob on here, so I have to run this extension. So just one more fucking thing to leak, so I don't like that very much, but it's kind of just the way that it's got to be. And then I also adjusted the band, and it didn't seem like it was too bad the way that it was, but I figured might as well. So band is freshly adjusted. Do that here just for any of you wondering. You tighten this thing down to 72 inch-pounds and then back it off 3.5 turns, 4 turns. You kind of can read about anything, but I did 3.5. So band is adjusted. And then I just kind of gave it a little wash down with brake clean so it's not so dirty anymore. And then maybe I can find out if there is anything else leaking, where it's leaking from. So this thing is ready to go back in. It's clean. Everything's good. I'm just going to slap her back up in the car and put the PTC in, and we'll see what happens. So I'm going to get on that. All right, so last thing you've seen is I just redid a bunch of plumbing on the transmission and got it all in. So it went relatively smoothly, but one thing I will say, just for anyone, if you ever run into this problem, or I don't know, maybe you just want to do it, I'm gonna start doing it all the time, no matter what, but when putting a converter in, let's see if this one you can see it on. You can't, but say this is the pilot, because this is the pilot spacer for that particular converter. So with this PTC, I decided that I needed to put it in Wednesday night, because then I remembered from the last time I had the PTC in that it needed washers, but they were like a weird thickness, not like a regular, like a washer that I have laying around here is like 60 thousandths thick, and I needed 30. So I thought that's what it was, but I wasn't sure. So I was like, well, I need to put this transmission in tonight, so if I do need to make washers for it, I can do it on Thursday, since we don't work Friday during the summer. And I needed all day Friday to put it together, because there's a car cruise in town that I kind of wanted to go to. So Wednesday night, after I played my golf league and did all this stuff, I decided that I was going to tackle this transmission install on my own, since Dad was already in bed. So I went ahead and did it, and the transmission basically just fell right in. It was perfect. But then I went to spin the converter, and it didn't spin. And I was like, what the hell? Like, it was tight, like locked up tight. And I'm like, interesting. So I got the transmission back out, kind of looked, measured. I'm like, well, it's like within like 2 thou of this spacer, which is what slid in the back of the crank before. Tried it again, same thing. Took it out, measured it, measured this. I'm like, God, it's only 2 thou, what the hell? I'm like, well, maybe it don't like that 2 thou. So then I polished and polished and polished and polished on this on the pilot and got that 2 thou out. Then I just lifted it up there by hand, which is maybe one thing that you should do before you put one of them in, just in case you have that, because it is kind of lame taking it back out once you already got like bolts in it and stuff. I mean, I was kind of decently into the process before I went to actually spin the converter and it didn't move. So that was a little depressing. But once I finally got to spin, put the converter back in, put it up in the transmission for the 3rd time, and then it went in and it spun and everything was all golden. So got her in, got all the stuff, pretty much bolted up, bolted everything in, and then measured for my spacers, and it measured exactly, it was 189, which converter space, you know, for the pullout of it, they recommend an 1/8 inch to 3/16, and 189 is 2/1000 over 3/16. So I know it probably would have worked, and I know that some people do it, but I didn't want to be that guy that's like flirting on the edge of disaster. So I made 30 thousandths washers, and that took care of it. Everything was perfect. Bolted it all up and did that. So then I had to put the 14-volt battery in and do the potentiometer. So I took a little video that I'll probably put in here, and you can see that it was charging at 16 volts, but I know that in the Family Man Racing video, he didn't really explain exactly where the wires go, and I looked it up online, and apparently it's backwards of the way that one might think that it is. So I'll show how I did it and which one I used, and it worked pretty good. So I'll show that right now. So here is our little setup. AA batteries is the battery. This charger is the alternator. And here is the potentiometer. So this is a 20K, this is not the one. I used a 5K and that was perfect. A 5K potentiometer worked great in my particular combination. So if you look up online how to wire these, that far right one is a ground. The middle is what they call an output, at least on the diagram that I seen, and the left one is power. So that meant to me, you know, wire the output to the alternator, because that's what we want to output to. But that did not work. So the way that it should be is, let me set this up. Plug that guy in there. I kind of crushed these things to make them to work, because this is what I used to test all this stuff, because I fully installed it and it didn't work, and then I had to take it out, and then I just did it on the floor basically because it was down. Hold on. Let me get this right so it makes sense. And there we go. So now the output wire is going to our battery. So you can see that there, the middle one comes over here to the battery. And then the power one goes up here into our alternator. So that is how that it worked. And then I just adjusted the dial until it was right. So then you can see on the car here, I just mounted the dial right there so I can adjust it if I need to. Because the first time I revved it up and it started getting pretty crazy on the voltage, and obviously you don't want that. So I turned it down a little bit. So it probably charges around 15.5 now, and it pretty much just hangs there. But the other thing that the video didn't explain is on the alternator. So let me grab a 4-pin connector so this makes sense. So I did not have a 4-pin plug like that one, but here is the thing. So you can see, looking into the plug, this is the view. Those are the pins. So just me being me, I thought that the S terminal was the 12-volt power to make the alternator excite, basically, but I was wrong. That is the L pin. So then I added a pin over here, which is where the S one is, and then that is what ran to the potentiometer, and then from the potentiometer, it went right back to 12 volts. So 12 volts to potentiometer to the S terminal of the alternator, and that will get you squared away. And so he was using a different alternator than I was. I don't remember if it's 80 or 100 or what it is, but it's the littlest amperage LS alternator that you can have. That's probably why it sucks so much, but it's the only thing that fits on my car. So that is how I did it. So your 12 volts is gonna go to the middle pin of the potentiometer, and then from the left pin goes to your alternator, which is this battery box in this particular scenario. I bought this whole kit on Amazon for like $8. The reason I didn't just buy a bunch of 5K ones is because I knew my alternator was different. I didn't know if it was going to take the same 1, but in fact it did. And so then, as I showed you already, I just mounted it right there, and if I want it to charge more, I can. If I don't, I don't. But it seems to do pretty good. It was holding 15.1 all the way through the pass, so that thing was working pretty nice. So yeah, that is how to do it. It's pretty simple. It works pretty nice. The way I ended up doing these was I took some butt connectors and crimped them onto these little pins, and then crimped these onto the butt connector, and then they were solid and they were fully insulated and there was going to be no BS. But I had to go get these because after it didn't work, I was getting tired of taking it apart and redoing it and struggling in the car, so then I just ran some super dang long wires so I could just adjust it on the fly outside of the car, or flip the wires, or do whatever you had to do to make it work. So that was just my 2 cents on how to do that. And I'll show you this thing one more time if you want to see it. But yeah, it worked pretty dang good. So anyone wanting to send screenshots, I took a little better drawing of this so you can see your L. And then that has to have a 470 ohm half watt resistor for your power. That's to excite the alternator. And then you can see from your S, you go to the left side of your 5K potentiometer, and then from the middle pin, you go to 12 volt, and the other side is ground, but I did not use it as it didn't really need it. So that is exactly how I did that, and it worked super nice. So per usual, my videos are completely out of order sometimes, but my whole plan, and I don't know if I said at the beginning, but my whole plan was to test on Sunday, which is today. So Friday, I busted ass all day, got the car back together, got the alternator charging, got everything going right, and then I went out to the car cruise. We did a 40-mile car cruise. The car ran awesome. I had barely any fuel to start, and I still had some fuel at the end. So that was pretty nice. I didn't run out of gas and get stranded anywhere, but yeah, it was hotter than hell outside. I mean, the cruise wasn't going that fast. We were probably going 40, but the car stayed at like 170 the whole time. So that was super awesome. And then, you know, planning on racing on Sunday, but of course the weather's just got to look kind of no good. So I was just watching it, and it didn't look like it was going to be a good day to race. So I ended up watching YouTube until like 2 o'clock in the morning on Saturday night with zero intentions of going out and going to the track. But I woke up at like 10:30 or 11 or something like that, and the rain was all moving away from the track, and I had a couple friends there, and they said that they were up and running, and I see online that they were up and running. I'm like, well, man, that really is a bummer, but it was still raining at my house, and, you know, I'm an open trailer guy, so if that means if you want to go somewhere and it's raining, the car's going to get soaked, and that's not really my favorite thing. But I was like, well, if I stay here and it rains all day, I don't have anything to do. If I go there and at least maybe make one run, maybe we can at least learn something. So that was what the plan was. We didn't know when the racing was going to end, but I figured they probably had 4 hours left at this point. It takes me an hour and 40 minutes-ish to get there. So I was like, well, let's pack her up quick and go. So pack her up we did. I actually forgot the tire gauge, but all I brought was my little toolkit and a couple, just like a bin that I have just got random parts in it, and car on the trailer, and drove through the rain on out there. And believe it or not, it rained probably half the time, and then the road was still wet like 20 minutes from the track, and then it was just bone dry at the track. So apparently they got no rain, and it just worked out perfect. There was just a shield over the racetrack, so where they got nothing. So testing is what we did, and I'll show you the first pass right here. This was the same tune-up that I ran at Cache at the Creek the last time on round 2, I think. So you remember we were running out of fuel then. Converter was still doing what the converter did, you know, 133, no matter how much power you put in it, no matter what, whatever, 133 60 foot. So I'm like, well, there's only one way to find out. Throw the same exact tune-up in it and see what happens. So that's what we did. there I seen pass. Obviously, I was pretty stoked in the car after that pass, so it just felt good. It left, and I felt like the wheels were off the ground just by the way that, just the way that it feels. But the wheels didn't come up as much as I thought they did in the car, but I was like, that felt really strong, just down low. I haven't felt anything that's been real strong down low in quite a while, so I'm like, that had to be a lot better. So then I go grab the slip, and sure enough, 121 of the 60 foot to a 525. And if you notice, the car kind of like stopped at the end, and that was because one of the battery terminals came loose. So I should have checked those, being that I had just put in the battery in and hadn't really done anything, and then went on a long street cruise. So that would have been a smart thing to check, but luckily it just came loose enough to where all voltage shut off, and then the car just came back to life. So there was no like goofy lean pops, or everything just quit at the same time. So that was perfect. It didn't wreck anything, didn't do anything. 14 volt battery and the fresh fuel filter really helped. It was holding perfect fuel pressure the whole run, and it was holding 15.1 volts the whole run. So I know that I said those filters never look dirty, but this is the old filter, and you can see it's kind of dark. The new one was like shiny stainless steel. So it was definitely dirty, even though it just didn't show it. That new one, it definitely looked a lot better than that one that came out of there. So that was nice to see anyway, because I was pretty sure that even without the 14 volt battery, it would be pretty awesome. And by all means, with the 3 pump or even the 4 pump setup, you do not need that. But being that this car screams so many RPMs, once you get way up there, most of the time it'll decide to quit charging. Sometimes it does, sometimes it don't. It's kind of hit or miss, and that's the difference of it. Like with this stator, it's not spinning 8,000 RPMs like the entire run, so then normally the alternator will actually keep up and keep going. But like with the Circle D one here, that thing, it's just 7,300 right off the chip, and then it just stops charging basically. So then you're down to 12 volts, 12.5, like it's barely working. If it has the proper voltage, it would work perfectly. So, and it's a race car, this thing is, so it just really needs to have the extra voltage. It's just a great safety thing. The car starts so much faster now, it's kind of mind-blowing. But yeah, so that was the pass number 1. It was awesome. I was super jacked to win a 525 and 129. It shut off at like 4.9 into the run, so it looked like it would around 135 to 137. So definitely was happy with that. Definitely happy to be back in the 520s. That was awesome. And then super happy with that 60 foot 121. That's tied for the fastest it's ever gone. It did that on the rear tires one time. So now we just got to get it to go sub 120s with the front tires on the ground, and that would be super awesome. So pass 2, we didn't really have a whole lot of time because they were planning on closing up the track. So I wicked it up a little bit, got the battery terminals all tightened. I'm like, let's go try it. So there you go. You'll see that. So there was pass number 2. I don't mind the spool up. It has an exhaust leak, and which I now fixed, but you'll see that shortly. I don't know why it does that. It never used to. It must be something in the stator, the way that it revs up or something, or maybe it's even in the engine, because it seemed like the engine spooled up way faster before I had to rebuild it. But I did a compression test on it, and it's like 170 on every hole. So I mean, it's tip-top shape. So the only thing I'm going to do is just keep throwing a few degrees at it down low, that initial Because once it gets up to like 4,000, then it just pops right off. But it takes it forever to get to 4,000, like 4 seconds to rev up that high. So I'm going to throw another 3-4 degrees in it down at the low RPMs and see if you can just mash it and get it to right up immediately. I thought maybe it was the intercooler, but the intercooler is gaining boost at the same time that the throttle body is. So I don't really think it's the intercooler, you know, just being that it's such larger volume compared to the water one. But also I'm not really sure. But so there you've seen I wicked it up quite a bit, as I said, and it just zipped the tires right off. I know the car don't normally spin, so the only thing I could figure is tire pressure, and I didn't have a tire pressure gauge. I did the first one because I asked Jason Neesham. He's got a badass hot rod drag week car. He's going to be out there again this year, but he was just packing all his stuff up, and so for the first run I was like, hey, can I borrow your tire gauge? Got him set, but then, you know, after the first run they're always 2.5 pounds more than you'd probably want, so I assume the tires are probably around 20. And this thing, especially as kind of crappy as the track was, it is usually like a 17.5-ish is what it likes. So obviously that didn't work, but I'm perfectly okay with it. I was perfectly okay with putting it on the trailer after pass 1 because all it did was show me that it's going to work. The day wasn't a total waste, and then I could prepare to go to Cache at the Creek. So that is the next thing now. Cache at the Creek is next week. I feel like our car is 100%. I don't think that it's going to be a winner because there are people that are so damn fast in that class, but I think we're going to be a lot harder to beat now. So, you know, a car going 550, something that makes a lot of horsepower is always going to run you down, just like that red Camaro did. So we're going to try to prevent that this time. The car going really fast to the 60 foot. Hopefully that gets me out enough when the track's crappy, and then if anyone's going to run me down, they're going to run me down. But still got some tune-up changes I can do. I'm going to bring some extra plugs and maybe trickle some more timing into it if it likes it. So I did back off the timing a little bit from the tune, and then now this is a whole different crankshaft, so I don't really know where the reluctor is on it. I got it close, but I'm just going to feel it out, and we'll just put timing in it as it wants it. So that's about all I'm going to do there, but I did fix the exhaust leak, so you'll see my spool test here. It may not seem like it, but it was 2 seconds faster than it was at the track, which is a pretty big deal. And I think I have a couple seconds to gain left. So definitely going to try to do that, but here's the spool test. Exhaust leak fixed, spool test. So there you saw it spool up. It was faster indeed, 2 seconds about, but I would like it faster yet. That's still kind of slow. That was 7 seconds to 14 pounds. It just seems like that from idle, that initial rev, it just takes it a while. So we got to get that hopped up just a little faster. And it was even like that with the Circle D, but with the Circle D before I had to rebuild the engine, it was really fast. And I was looking at the tune-ups, and the numbers just aren't a whole lot different. And it's the same cylinder head, it's the same rods, it's the same pistons, the compression check, test out. So only thing it can be is just ignition timing. So we're gonna play with the timing a little bit. Obviously it can't be too far off for how fast the car's been. It's definitely making power, but it might just want some more down low. So I'm gonna give it some more just off that initial rev just to get it over the 3,000 RPM hump, because it'll make like 1 or 2 pounds right away, but it's gotta get 3-4 faster than that. So we're going to give it some more timing, and I'll try it again. But I felt like that the exhaust leak was probably what it was, and obviously it helped, but it didn't fix it totally. So we're gonna mess with that a little bit more as the week goes. But this thing's probably just gonna chill here. It seems to be pretty much ready. I'm just gonna get it up in the air and give everything a once over and make sure all the bolts are good and everything else is ready to go. And then we're gonna go into Cache at the Creek with a 100% car. So that will be a first for me. The first time we went out you know, we had very little testing and the timing was way off and the bump was kind of sucking, and we still managed to go pretty damn fast that day after I got everything figured out. So we had a 100% car at the time. I just didn't know what I was doing with it yet. That was 2 years ago. So then, and that was Cache at the Creek number 3. So that was the very last one. The second Cache at the Creek of that same year, I still had the timing way off, so it wasn't anything good. So we'll just throw that one out the window. Then last year, we were having all the converter problems for both of the Cache at the Creeks and the Midway shootout that we went to. I guess the Midway shootout of 2021, the car was 100%, and we did make it to the semifinals where I got my ass busted by a pro-charged Hemi. So that's kind of being expected when you have a truck motor. But so then this year, obviously the Cache Creek that we were at still wasn't sure. Made a bunch of changes, but none of it helped. But now we ran a pretty solid ET. I think that would have been a PB if it would have held in there and went all the way through. So yeah, we got a 100% car. And I'm going to get this thing ready for Cache at the Creek, and we're just going to go and have fun. I'm going to play with the tune-up and just see if we can get a 4-second pass, because that would be super cool, and I'd be pretty jacked up about it. That was the whole goal, and we basically tossed a year and a half away because whatever in that converter just won't 60-foot. My dad said he knew it was going to rip right away just because of the burnout smoke. So it seemed like it took it like high gear before it really started smoking. So obviously that fixed it, and I know there's a ton of people out there with Circle D that have their shit is just flying and it's just working great, but that maybe it's that particular converter or maybe it's my car, I don't know, but it just didn't like it. As you know, I tried it with different transmissions and a whole bunch of different stuff, and I've had 3 engines in it and it just made 0 difference. So obviously it just likes this PTC because that was the same tune and it just worked. So we're just going to stick with PTC at least for now. And that's my move. Not saying anything bad about Circle D. Like I said, I just don't know why, but it is what it is and I don't really care. Now it works and I'm just stoked about it. Does it suck that we lost that much time? Yes, but like I said, it just is what it is and it's no big deal. So we'll go out, try it again, and hopefully Cache at the Creek goes good and we go fast. That would be pretty exciting to me.